was glad that you'd sent that.
I don't really care, like, on it. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I've been, it's just like whatever. It doesn't. Do people even read it? But also from your perspective too.
Yeah, one of my friends had his mum got his passport made for him. This is 20 years ago now, and she got his middle name wrong. His middle name was Scott, and she'd filed it off as Slott, Slott. So he had a passport with the middle name Slot for 10 years. I always revert back to that when I'm thinking about typos and getting things wrong. But yeah, anyway.
It's funny you say that. My little brother, when they did his birth certificate, they put his middle name is David. They put capital L-A, capital D. So like La David. So for the first 18 years of his life, his official name was middle name was La David, like the David. That's actually kind of awesome. But
yeah, especially if he goes to France.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining me today. I've been really looking forward to having you on and chatting about yourself and Carrie Ann, about your backgrounds, and hopefully we can have a really good chat about Ruck Race League, which is obviously your newest baby, and hopefully the one that we can have quite a big legacy with yourself. So thank you for joining me today. Been up to much this morning? I know it's only 9 o'clock, but have you worked out yet?
No, not yet. I don't know if I'm gonna do it. Probably this afternoon. Maybe a early afternoon workout today.
What have you got planned? Does it involve a ruck?
No, I don't think there's gonna be a ruck in there. I don't know what I got. I kind of like fly by the seat of my pants sometimes. I don't really follow like a structured program right now, just kind of principle based. So we'll see. I got a medical thing after this, and then probably just something easy to move, maybe some cardio. I feel like I haven't done like a good cardio workout in a while.
Yeah, I'm on a bit of a similar kind of crusade at the moment as yourself. I got the Open finished with 13th Open, as I do every year, and then I just decided to completely sack off any cardio for a month and just get absolutely hench and just see what I can get my bench up to. So squat, bench, and deadlift for a 6-week cycle, just to feel a little bit more. I'm 40 now, so getting a little bit more muscle on me while I can. But yeah, I did my first sort of 40-minute cardio piece earlier on, and oh my goodness me, you realise how quickly that stuff can leave your body. But yeah, it's good to move. How old are you, Bill?
I'll turn 40 in July.
Do you know what? Out of the last sort of 10 people I've spoken to, about 6 or 7 of them are 40 this year. It's very strange. There's all 85 babies coming through and having a chat with me. So it's totally unintentional. So, Bill, where did you grow up? Obviously, was it the US that you grew up in? Yeah. Whereabouts?
Yeah, in New Jersey, a town called Cranford, just maybe 10 minutes away from Newark Airport, 10 miles away from New York City. Grew up there, went to school there, went to college there, and then a little bit later in life, moved around.
Okay. And did you have a fairly good upbringing, family around you?
Yeah, middle of 3 sons. Mom and dad, very supportive. They provided. No family's perfect by any means, but my parents soccer was like my big sport. So I definitely grew up like a soccer kid. And they were always, they were not the kind of parents who were like, you have to do this, you have to do that. So I really appreciated that.
Excellent. So not pressure with regards to activity, but they wanted you to do something and be active. And do you think you got good values instilled? Do you ever look back and think about the values that your parents gave you?
I think I mean, it's funny. My day job now is a therapist and mental health therapist. I do and childhood is obviously a big part of people's lives. So we spend a decent amount of time analyzing that or interpreting that or whatever. And I think it's interesting, like parents can't instill all values. Like you're limited, maybe 4 or 5. And if you say, okay, well, over the span of a life, you need 10 arbitrarily. Like,
Mm.
so the values that my parents did instill, hard work, honesty, those kinds of things, I'm very appreciative for. Yeah.
It's interesting because again, the people that I speak to on here that have kind of had that go out and get it done attitude, they all quote their parents as having instilled that in them. There's very, very, very few people that I ever speak to that have got that and take pride in it, that feel like they did it themselves. It's something they attribute to other people. There's probably something in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so childhood good. Now you say you played soccer. I'm really happy to hear that, because a few of the European gym owners that I've spoken to in the last couple of months, they've all done American sports, which completely blows my theory out of the water that American sports are just American, right? So it's nice to hear you growing up playing, I'm going to call it our sport, soccer or football. Do you think you got a lot out of the team element of playing soccer? And what age did you grow up to playing soccer?
Yeah. So the team element, absolutely. I got a ton out of that. In fact, I think it informed what I would do later in life, in terms of going into the military. I started as young as I think I can remember. I don't know, what is that, 6 maybe? I forget. When they're little, like the ball is half the size of the person. And it's funny, I played all the way through into college and finished.
Oh wow.
Finished a college, like my senior year in college. I was a first team All-American. Like, I'm in my college Hall of Fame for soccer. Like, had a very long, very successful career. And to the earlier point, like, there's no way I would have had that good of a run had it not been for teammates and coaches also. So, like, the reliance on others to drive you, to push you. Hey, if you're starting center midfielder, like, and your teammates and practice players, like, aren't pushing you, you're not going to do as well as you could in the game. Like, we need other people. It's as simple as that. To go anywhere, we need other people. And I think soccer, in my experience of soccer, yeah, my successes were reliant upon others. Not 100%. Obviously, I had to bring whatever my individual capacities were, but I wouldn't have been an All-American if my team sucked, like, honestly, or if my, like, there's no way a team sport you do it all yourself.
No. So I had a really good chat with Daniel Chafee yesterday, and we were talking about this thing that this idea that I've been thinking about for many years now, and a few other people have as well, is that it's very rare, like extremely rare, that you find an elite, top tier sports person becoming an elite manager or coach in their sport. It's extremely rare. Now, Daniel put that down to, and I tend to agree, the fact that they don't develop the necessity to think about other people. It's not central to how they develop. To be a coach, you have to be able to ring fence the entirety of the squad, the team, and to think about other people around you. Now, your Cristiano Ronaldos, your Lionel Messi's, they're not necessarily thinking about anyone else. They are the conduit for the winning. For winning, they are the end result that everyone kind of contributes towards. So much so that I think that individual sports probably amplify that even further. If you are purely in an individual sport, you obviously rely on a team around you, but you are in it just for you. You're the one stood on the podium at the end of the day, not the team around you. So when it comes back to team sports, and we talk about this with our kids all the time, and you know, I know Savon does as well all the time, is that team sports are so damn important for development around, you know, social etiquette, about working for a team, working as part of, you know, you're a cog, you're a link in a
Yeah.
chain. So I'm glad you mentioned this, but so you would have finished university around 2006, 2007, is that right? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
How long was it after you'd graduated from college that you joined the military?
Yeah, it was actually like 2.5, 3 years. So I finished school in the spring of '07. Yeah, spring of 2007, and I went to basic training in the Army in November of 2010. Um, so after actually going into my senior year, I had to find an accounting. PricewaterhouseCoopers is where I went
Right.
to work
Okay.
after I graduated, and I had that lined up because I had an internship prior to my senior year and this and that. And so I worked there for about 2 years and hated it, like, auditing, no, I was not for it. Some people love it, they
Yeah.
make careers out and they do very good. I was the wrong fit.
Mm.
And I kinda knew that, but my older brother was, an Air Force pilot in the Air Force. And at the time, you know, this is, you know, so I was 16 when 9/11 happened, and he was already at the Air Force Academy. And so, you know, for me, I had this inner conflict of going into the military, something I always wanted to do, wanted to be like a commando, and yet my older brother was already in, and I felt guilty, like, putting that putting that kind of experience onto my parents.
Mm.
Um, so, you know, I kinda tried to figure my own way out. Um, I was thinking, "Oh, maybe I'll, like, do something in, like, the FBI or a little bit safer," and, realized, like, what am I like, this is not I gotta live my life. I gotta really step into what's calling me. And so I quit my job at, PwC and enlisted into the Army.
Very rare that you get that at that age, that listening to that calling. You know, accountancy can be very, you know, from a monetary perspective, very, you know, very profitable, and can be
Mhm.
really good for your life ahead. But I think stepping away from something that lucrative and giving yourself over to the armed services at that age, because correct me if I'm wrong, I wouldn't have thought many people would be in that boat. You know, I could be very wrong here, but I would have thought a lot of people would join the armed forces a little bit maybe before that, or having not established themselves, having got a degree, and then a couple of years under their belts in a trade, a very lucrative trade, to walk away from that then and give yourself over to the national service. I'd imagine that'd be quite uncommon.
I don't know what the no like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's the most common thing. I think it's probably more on the rare side.
Mm.
I do know, though, the community that I went into, it wasn't unheard of,
Okay.
for people to, you know, for example, uh, for like, here's a good one. Pat Tillman, he was a
Mm.
NFL player, and
Mm.
he talked about being lucrative, you know, way more. And he left that and joined the Army and enlisted, and unfortunately, you know, died. And so in that community, in that kind of special operations community that I went into, it certainly wasn't unheard of. I think maybe as the military wide, it
Mm.
is, especially on the enlisted side,
Mm.
it's more rare. Mostly people come in right out of high school,
Yeah.
maybe a year or two after, if they kind of are not sure. But I also learned, like, yeah, I was making great money, especially at the time. You know,
Mm.
I was 22 making, you know, what I thought was like a lot of money. Um, and it was good money. It was great money. And I realized money is a real shitty indicator of life success and fulfillment. So I learned
Right.
a priceless lesson at that age. And
Yeah.
the inner discourse was also sort of the fee and the requirement to get the signal too. So very, very grateful for that.
That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah. I've had 2 instances in my life now, and I'm 40. I did that a lot later than you, where I've stepped away from higher income or more valuable, let's call it, property or income for something greater. If you know what I mean, for more inner peace and for a bit of sanctity.
What did you step away from, if you don't mind me asking?
So to go full time with CrossFit coaching and to move toward owning an affiliate, I've stepped away from. I was a national account manager for a firm in the UK, and I've been building up from that. I graduated the same year as you, just earlier, 2006. So it had taken me the best part of like 6, 7, 8 years to build up this kind of pedigree, but all the while felt like a complete foreigner. People spoke a language that I didn't understand. I felt like I was blagging my way through because I just didn't. Sitting down in meetings and talking rubbish about numbers and forecasts and profit sharing and account development, and it was a foreign language to me. It didn't make sense. And all the while, I'm going to the gym 5 days a week, and it makes perfect sense. I step in the gym and I feel at home. And at no point up during those early years did I ever equate myself to being involved in that, in that industry. And then I found CrossFit late 2011, and then started 2012, did my L1, started coaching, and by 2014 I was in a position where I said good riddance, goodbye. And yeah, that was the first time, but I took a bit of a financial hit there. Walking away from a big role. And then a few years later, so 3 years ago from now, moved to where I am now in the Isle of Man. Sold my affiliates and moved away from quite a healthy pay, so that my kids can. And this isn't to sound noble or bloody humble, whatever. My mum's side of the family are from the Isle of Man, and I knew damn well my kids could have an incredible life. So could we. And a much safer life over here. So we moved away from the old life and moved here, and I don't regret it ever. It's been incredible for us. So a couple of times, but that's been later in life. It hasn't been at that stage that you were at. So the reason I brought that up earlier is because I think it's quite admirable and quite telling of your upbringing that you were in a position mentally to make that determination quite early on. So there's something to hold dear and be proud of. So military 2010. Now I watched your first. I'm gonna segue it in here. You see, I'm getting a little bit better at all this. I watched one of your first videos that you've launched. Now you guys have launched this, I think, within the last month. Is that right? Maybe the last few weeks.
Last week, yeah.
Last week.
Yeah, we want to have more of this kind of stuff. Where anyway, we launched YouTube.
Absolutely. So we've got a video there. Now I've gone through it 1.5 times. Your video that you've got on there, I listened to it, and I've gone through some of the pieces on there, and some of it was really interesting. Well, it was all really interesting. There were a few bits in there. So obviously Carrie Ann is your partner in life and in business, I guess. Kind of swinging ourselves around a little bit towards the CrossFit end of the story. In there, you mentioned that Carrie Ann came across CrossFit and started it in 2008.
Yeah. Now,
am I right in saying that you met Carrie Ann after she had opened her affiliate? Was it after or at the same time?
After, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. And where was the gym that Carrie Ann started?
Morristown. So her first gym was in a town called Bernardsville. And then she opened up a location down the road in a little bit bigger of a city called Morristown.
Okay.
And that's how we met. I walked into her gym. I was actually late for class, and I was like, "Are you kidding?" I was going to not go. Honestly, I was going to not go. A childhood friend that I had, he was a few years older. He started coaching for her, and over I guess Facebook maybe, because I was actually not living in New Jersey at the time, and CrossFit coming up and this and that, and this is during the days where it was like this secret society kind of situation, you know, and it wasn't, people weren't walking around with Rogue shirts or anything like that, or Nanos and not doing CrossFit. It was very much like, wait, you too? Like, let's go, let's live in the park.
Yeah.
Let's do it, you know.
Yeah.
Just a really fun time. And yeah, so you started coaching. I was like, hey, I'd love to actually, like, now that I'm home for a few months before shipping out to the military, like, I'd love to just like see what like a real CrossFit gym is like, because I didn't really have that experience. I was working out in like a 24-hour fitness or something. And he's like, yeah, I'm coaching this or that. Or so I went up and I was like I got lost, ironically enough. And then I was like, oh, I'm like 5-10 minutes late. And I wasn't even going to plan on working out. I just wanted to check it out and say hello and whatever. And yeah, I walked in and she was there and was like, hey, I was just like, she totally gave me an attitude. Like, it wasn't like, which was great, because it was like, you want to work out? I was like, sure. So I jumped into the class. It was Fight Gone Bad. And yeah, it was a special
first
event.
workout.
Fight Gone Bad. Yeah, I had already my level 1 actually. I was down in Texas for like a year, kind of, I don't know, lost basically, but I was doing a lot of working out. I was you know, preparing for the army, preparing for the military and stuff. But I got like super into CrossFit, just totally inundated with it. And there was a level 1 down at Fort Hood, actually. And I was like, this thing is awesome. I want to go take it. I had no plans on coaching or opening it. I just was like, you know, it was during those days where it was just like, you scour every journal article, every piece of content. And if there was an opportunity to do something live and in person, you did it. Like, you had, like, how would you not? And it was, yeah, I was like all in.
Amazing. And do you clearly remember who took your L1? Was there any memorable names?
Yeah. Todd Widman, Miranda Oldroyd, Russ Berger, Spencer Nix. I forget if there was one other, but it's funny because I have like a relationship with all of them, really, except for Russell right now. It's just our paths never really crossed. But
I was
the
going to
other
mention
3 of
Miranda.
them,
Yeah. We'll come back to Miranda in a bit, I think, in a couple of minutes. Cool. So you started CrossFit journey there. You've done your L1, and then you joined the military. So we won't obviously go into details of military. How long were you serving with the military?
I was in for 5 years.
Okay, cool. And was it difficult to step away for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was both difficult and the easiest thing. Like, it was almost, I left, I didn't re-enlist because every day that I was in, I was away from Kay and the kids. So they stayed up in New Jersey. I was the satellite. So I was always gone. Never saw them. They were young. They were really young. So I'm their stepdad, and they were, I want to say maybe like 3 and 5-ish when I think I came into their life. So they were tiny. And yeah, I just was never, I was in 2 worlds that never could coexist, really. That could never.
I believe the mic's gone. That's all right, Bill. I'm not sure if you can hear me. There we go.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you good.
My microphone fell out. Yeah, so I left. So it was almost like not a decision. I knew in my heart, like, I wanted to be with my family. Wanted to live that life, wanted to experience what it would like to, you know, be in a family. So for as easy as a decision as that was, it was also extremely difficult because it was pretty much the only thing I ever wanted to do my whole life. And my job was, I think I tried to do as good of a job as I could to not have my entire identity be consumed by my job in the military. But in order to get to that job, you have to have that as part of your identity. So you know, it was very hard, very, very hard.
Yeah, it's very unique, I'd imagine, being in the military. Nothing will compare to it, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough to have quite a few people around me that were in the military or are in the military. My old gym, one of my old gyms was in Windsor in England, where we got the barracks. The lifeguards are there. It's where the Queen was. The King lives next door. So it's quite a big kind of regiment there. A lot of my old members were military, serving at the time. I've got a lot of family members that are and current friends and acquaintances at the gyms that I'm at the moment. There's a very different take from everyone that did serve about how they want to be perceived as being part of the armed forces and services. That might be different in different nationalities in different countries, but one of my friends parceled it off. That was part of his life up until 20, whenever it was, when he kind of didn't re-enlist, and that's that done. Doesn't really like to go back to it. Doesn't think about it. That's part of his history. It's part of who he is and was. But he's moved on. Next chapter. Then I know a few other lads that are still mentally there. They're still part of the army. They forever will be, and that's their identity. But I guess that's just a very unique thing, isn't it? And I guess you will always be able to have that to your name. So yeah, however you move on with that, I guess is just how you individually deal with it and like to. Obviously, one legacy of that is rucking, and we'll come on to that in a sec. So that's one thing that you've taken from that. Bill, I don't want to disturb us, but we do have a celebrity in the house. We've got Trish, so just say hi to Trish for me.
Hey Trish, how's it going?
Kind of a big deal. So military. So 2015. Did you say that you didn't realise in 2015? Is that when you walked away?
Yeah, November 2015. Okay.
And what was your obviously family priority in terms of income and in terms of career path? What was the first thing that you decided that you wanted to come back to?
CrossFit. So
Great.
My wife was running a gym, CrossFit Morristown. It's still around. We're not the owners anymore, but it was there. Yeah, and then I wanted to really get into that. So I then eventually went on and worked for level 1 staff, teaching the L1s. And then, but that's kind of like the gym was already established. It was nearly a 10-year affiliate already, very established. Level 1 staff was great, but like that's a weekend thing. That's not really like a during the week kind of 9 to 5 thing. Not that it needs to be a 9 to 5, but it was just weekends and traveling. And I was like lost, honestly. So I wanted to try to actually share experiences that I thought could be valuable for folks that I was grateful enough to live through that others kind of provided for me. Again, back to the thing of like creating this thing yourself. Like that didn't happen. So I started this company called Between the Ears that was sort of workout-ish based, but with a twist in the sense that it was more about, kind of what happens between there and confronting people with challenges, with overwhelm, with the unknown, like truly the unknown, so they could get a glimpse into how they respond to that and how do they operate under adversity. Not how do they win the unknown, but how do they, just a demonstration just exposing how they truly operate when the stress is high, when the unknown is there, when there's overwhelm, when there's, the mind wants to figure it all out. And when we sort of put you in a situation where there's nothing to figure out, there's just accepting it and engaging in the present moment. That's a new look for a lot of people. That's an experience that, we don't really generally have. And so kind of started doing like events and overnight stuff and just kind of this wild sort of thing. But I never wanted it to be like, oh, this is like a recreation of the military, where I'm going to be yelling and screaming and doing that thing. There was certainly, I stole, borrowed, was inspired by ways that we would do things maybe throughout different courses or selections or stuff like that. But my general disposition and demeanor and attitude was not one of like punishment and yelling at you or that kind of thing. Cause I wouldn't want to do that. Like I've done that. And it's just like, this isn't, I don't want this to try to be like the military or anything.
No. And so that was, what year did you launch between years?
Probably like 2016, probably the same year. Yeah. I was actually going to go back in. I was actually going to go back into the Army, in the National Guard, and do some other government stuff. And Kay was actually like, you want to do this between the years thing, and you're not like that. You're not going to do that if you go back in. And she knew that, sort of the details and the requirements of what I was going to get back involved with. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So didn't go back in. It was like, okay, I'm going to give this between years thing a go. And
And it went.
It went. It was a crazy journey, but yeah, it went.
Absolutely. So on your show that you did the other day, between the years kind of was mentioned and discussed briefly. The next thing that you guys talked about was the Vector project during the pandemic. Can you briefly talk about that? Because I think that might have some influence on what happened next.
We were driving home. I had a few hour drive home, and it was during the pandemic and all the craziness that was going on during that. And I got thinking to giving, like, people needing some sort of goal to work towards, something to say, look, I'm maybe in the shit right now, but there's like a little ray of light out there. There's something that I'm working towards. And we need that. We need that physically. We need that psychologically. And this idea of aim and direction was just swirling around in my head on a drive. And I was thinking, oh, that's like a vector, right? When the vector is a direction, is a relationship to something. And I was like, that would be really cool if we used a hard event, like a challenging, longer distance event, to reverse plan and train for, because so much of the benefit of those types of experiences is the training. It orients your life. And you're like, look, for the next 10 weeks, I've got a goal. I've got focus. I've got something to work through. And then you get to the final event or game day or whatever it might be. And it's like, let's see what you got, and see how it goes. And so I came up with the idea of having a 12-mile ruck into a 6-mile run as the event. Something that was doable.
Yeah.
But like probably best not to just show up and give it a go. And because I wanted people to really experience training also. So had that as the final event and put together a 10-week training program that had a strength and conditioning workout, a run workout, and a ruck workout. So 3 workouts a week for 10 weeks. It had a sort of a mindset kind of thing to think about or to read or to whatever. And it had journal prompts. I'm a big fan of journaling and for one's own process. And yeah, it was a really cool event and experience where people from all over, I think it was probably the country, I don't know if we were overseas yet, had a neat experience. Totally different. Each person had a different thing in terms of like what they got out of it and whatever. But yeah, it was a pretty special event.
Yeah.
Cool program.
And again, I do like the contrast between sort of between the ears unknowable aspect and throwing things, how do they crack, how do they cope under pressure, and contrast that with a 10-week plan building towards one event. So you've got within there, you've got both sides of that same coin covered there. Now, Carrie Ann said, and I thought this was quite funny because it rings true with me as well. Bill has a lot of ideas. So, so are you one of these people that you're just you're oozing with these ideas and these plans, but you can't quite, but narrow down and actually execute every single one of them. So having a Carrie-Anne on your team is the person that kind of you've sublet the decision making to her. So you're coming up with these great ideas, and she's the one that directs which way you go in with them. Would that be true to say?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh.
I'll have an idea, want to do something, and she'll actually like bring it to life and be like, okay, that's great. Because my follow through, like I'm not great at follow through. We're sticking with something. So like I'll have ideas and this and that. And sometimes, you know, and I'll beat myself up over that sometimes too, because they'll live and die in like a notebook. And then years later I'll go back and be like, oh fuck, man, like this, why didn't I do anything with that? So yeah, I would say that I'll have ideas, lots of ideas, and she'll actually like make shit happen.
Mm. Well, I'm glad that you found Carrie-Anne and someone like her, because and again, for someone like Carrie-Anne, having someone like you, bringing forward these ideas that she can help execute and actually help value with. That's also a major part. So a lovely partnership. Now, one thing that I do want to bring up now, it's featured in a couple of things that you said. You mentioned it on your show the other day. I found on one of your posts, I think it was one of the Vector Project workouts, Sisyphus. So I'm obsessed with the myth of Sisyphus, so much so that I've got a tattoo of him rolling a rock up a hill.
Yes.
I teach my kids about the myth of Sisyphus. I don't know if you've read The Myth of Sisyphus by Camus, the philosophical take on kind of life and unfortunately suicide, embracing the absurdity. Oh God, Jake's favorite. I know. And Heidi, I'm glad you brought that up, Heidi, because it is a favorite of mine. The Myth of Sisyphus is something I hold very dear, and I've taught it to my kids. They ask me about that now and again as well. And the reiteration of the fact that you have to imagine Sisyphus as finding happiness in the unforgiving task of pushing that rock up the hill, knowing damn well he's never going to get it to the top of that hill. He will. That he's set for eternity to push that rock up the hill and never complete the task. But he has to find happiness in the process of pushing it. You have to. It's what you need to do as a human being. That's part of the whole ethos and learning from that. Can you go into why you've used Sisyphus and why you've gone down that route? Because it does keep coming up in some of your social posts and with your work.
Yeah. Yes, it's funny. I think I first learned really in my adult life about Sisyphus on deployment when one of my teammates said we were gonna get a team shirt made, and it was gonna be the outline of Sisyphus pushing a boulder up a hill, and it was basically gonna say something we would always say about that trip. And so, and that was kind of, I think, just like planted in my subconscious or whatever. And then again, I think this was like a pandemic kind of thing. Yeah, I think it was around that. I think it was after the Vector project. Anyway, a lot of this, to be honest with you, a lot of the between year stuff and the programs and projects that we've done there, I look at it now and I realize like, oh, those were all kind of for me in a sense, where it really is this canvas of the shit that I was going through in life. And there's been a lot of internal stuff that I've struggled with, and depression and loneliness, just like a lot of like sadness, and just a lot of there's been a lot of stuff that I've kept within and haven't really shared too much about, and it was struggled by. And so with the Sisyphus, the more I kind of looked into it, there was this repetitive cyclical monotony of no matter how hard you try, the thing is going to roll back down the hill, and then what do you do? And to me, you know, I don't know. I guess I kind of thought a lot about that, because that's kind of how my life really kind of felt, like trying and trying and putting all this effort, and just never. I felt like every 5 years I had a reset. You know, I was in the military, doing good, had some pretty cool opportunities, and to go and then leave and then come back. And it's like, oh, what the heck do I do now? I'm 30 and I've never lived with these people. I'm home, but I don't feel home. Kind of like to your point too, of like, you know, you felt home when you went to the gym, and it was just like a reset and a reset. Um, which I'm grateful for, because it means that I get to take another breath, but also like I just so desperately wanted or needed to feel like I was making progress on something. Just um and I guess it kind of became this concept through my life too, that meaning ameliorates the suffering of life.
Mm.
And could potentially say like, yeah, I think Buddhism, I'm not like a Buddhist. I certainly don't know all the texts and all of this and that, but the proximity to suffering is not unfamiliar.
Mm.
And if like, what is it about suffering that really makes it worse? And I think it's if it has no meaning. But there is suffering, kind of like, you know, hey, life is suffering, and
Yeah.
welcome. Like, it means you're
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah.
And I think our capacity as humans to make meaning out of our suffering is one of the ways in which the myth of Sisyphus, or other, you know, kind of archetypal texts and stories and mythology, can really inspire us to do amazing and wonderful and beautiful things.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so that became the idea. And from that, the way in which we do things, or the way in which I do things, is cool. That's awesome. How do we involve someone in like a really immersive experience with that? And the language, some people do art, other people cook. For me, it's movement, it's workouts, it's physical experiences. So I came up with an idea of 4 1-hour workouts that were single modality and monotonous,
Yeah.
and launched it. It was like, hey, world, you want to do something that no one else would ever want to do, but like, you down for some suffering?
Yeah.
But again, not in a way that's just like, because you could stand here and bang your head against the wall and say, oh, that hurt, that was suffering. That masochism is very
Mm.
uninteresting to me. Just mindless, like ego chest pumping suffering too, where it's like, no, that was really comfortable for you. There wasn't any suffering. So I came up with 4 1-hour workouts that were in some ways mind numbing. I tried to get it almost as close to the pushing a boulder up a hill kind of thing, and launched it, and you know, people did it and had a good time, and it
Mm.
was just another chapter, I suppose.
Yeah. And again, another step towards what is your current um current position, let's call it. It's an evolution
Yeah,
with Ruck Race League.
yeah,
So there's a couple of quotes, and I implore everyone to go and watch that. It's about an hour. Yourself and Carrie Ann discussing Ruck Race League, what it's all about, and that you go into a lot of detail about it and why you come around it and the value of it and all the not the criticisms that you've had online about it, and the kickbacks on it. There's an answer to all of them. There's more than one answer to all of them, which I really enjoyed listening. One of which was speed walking. Is a sport at the Olympics, so why can't kind of rucking? It's funny you say that, because on the island where I live, speed walking is really bloody big. It's very, very big here. So before I'd moved here, I very rarely. The only time I saw it was on at the Olympics. Then when I moved here, within a week, I'd seen about 10 of them. What would look like mincing around on the roads, funny hips moving and everything like that. And you're thinking, what the hell are you doing?
right.
But when you learn about it, when you realise that there's rules to it, when you see people, and there's a lady called Erica who's the Ireland champ at the moment, who goes to Commonwealth Games and is contending for GB for Olympics. They're quick. Her
Yeah,
10K time is sub 40 minutes speed walking. A heart rate
right.
doesn't go above 130. Like, they are bloody quick.
It's
It's a
amazing.
sport. It is a genuine bona fide sport. But again, it's that initial perception that we have about what a sport should look like that we need to break down, and we need to think about, right, what value are we getting out of this? Can you do that? Right, go for a walk, try and do a 10K walk in under 40 minutes. Let's see how you get on.
Yeah.
Try and run it under 40. Let's see how you get on with that. So anyway, that was a quick diversion. So rucking, for anyone, let's say someone's just joined and they have no idea what rucking is. Quick couple of minutes about what rucking itself is away from the league. So what would a ruck be?
Walking with weight on your back. Walking with a backpack.
Really that simple.
Moving with a backpack. It's that simple. Yeah. Just look at what kids do going to school. They're rucking. It's basic.
So everyone's been prepping for it since they were knee-high to a grasshopper.
Right.
Everyone knows how to do it. Obviously, injuries aside. So talk me through the moment or the build up to when you realized that you wanted to take this thing that you'd done from a kid, that you'd done in the military a lot. You've got your background, like we've talked about with between the years, about challenging people with the unknown. Vector project, 10-week program, monotonous. You had that 6 mile, I think it was 10 mile ruck involved with there. You move on to the Sisyphus challenges, very monotonous, very long. You want to challenge people with monotony. Then you come on to rucking. Talk me through the moment when you realized that rucking could and should be a sport, and then how you decided to make it into a league.
So we did after the games this past year, we launched the Vector project again, because it wasn't this like ongoing thing, but we said, hey, let's bring that out. Let's do something. It's really good. So we did that, and I was on a training ruck, maybe like an 8 mile or something. And I was doing it. I like to ruck when I like to just not have any music in, just listen to nature, observe my mind, whatever it might be, just be present, not trying to just like nug my way through it. Cariana Kay, my wife, was walking a 5K with her mom. It was this event, and her mom wanted to train for a 5K and walk it. She's like, yeah, cool. So Kay put a ruck on, and I was like, oh, I'll ruck it with you, you know? And I just was kind of thinking about that. And then I got to thinking, I was like, oh, I wonder if there's any other people at that 5K who had a ruck on. And then just sort of naturally it was like, there's people who will ruck. There's people who will do 5Ks, but there's no like 5K for people who ruck. And I understand that people can join 5Ks and ruck, but there's little spatterings here, very obscure, very, very obscure. There isn't really a competitive outlet for people to ruck, to challenge themselves, because it's inherently challenging, I guess, as any movement kind of is, and see how they stack up against others. And for me, I was kind of thinking about that and how it's a natural human curiosity to wonder about that. And then I just kind of throughout the rest of the ruck was kind of thinking like, oh, that'd be cool if we like developed an outlet or created a home for people who, and when I say ruck, like there's plenty of opportunities for people to do military inspired, in many cases, the same exact kind of stuff you would do, because I come from that community. But that's different. That is different. That is a totally different expression of rucking or of human movement. I'm more curious in just rucking, not doing flutter kicks or burpees or having to whatever, put the bag down and run, like none of that stuff. And so this idea of rucking as a sport was kind of interesting to me. And so I did some research and was like, yeah, I like, because at first I thought like, obviously someone's doing this. Obviously someone's doing this.
Mm.
I am not that creative or all that smart. And I couldn't really find anything. And I said to Kay when she got home, I was like, hey, I had this idea like on the Ruck. And she's like, oh God, you know, another one. And the more we chat about it, she's kind of like, yeah, I guess you're right. So kind of did some research and looked into it and couldn't really find anything. And I was like looking, I'll go down a rabbit hole and find the end of it. And I was like, some kind of maybe hoping someone proved me wrong, because then it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to do it. Couldn't find it. Couldn't find it. And so decided to build it.
Now, I've had a couple of questions in here. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up your, before we move on, I'm going to pull up your Ruck Race League Instagram page. So already doing well over 5,000 followers. We want to get this higher because all the information about loading, about the actual distances is all on here. Already got the league, already got the leaderboard going up. There's a lot of variety in here. It seemingly, so if we were to say, okay, Ruck League, what does it involve? One of the obstacles that I guess you have to kind of deal with kickback is how inventive or how creative can you get with rucking. Now, anyone can go to this page and actually just scroll down and get an immediate answer from that. It turns out you can be very, very creative, given the right mind. Tell me how. First of all, I'll come on to how people can register and how we can get people involved in this. But tell me how you go about programming this. Oh, there's the Vector Project trainer. Talk me through how you come up with these different ideas and your process behind programming for it.
Yeah, so some of the workouts you see, so see how it says like 1 mile easy, 1 mile fast, then it's got the our Chris Hinshaw program to work out. So this was our preseason. So as a way of kind of trying to get people involved and provide value and kind of, you know, we could explain to people, hey, when we mean rucking is this sport, it's an athletic expression, it's got this, it's got that, and we can like hammer people with maybe words and marketing. I don't know about marketing, but like there's that. And in our experience, it's like, or at least what we're interested in is like, forget explaining it to people, just have them experience it in the first place. So do that through a movement. So we had this idea of saying that'd be really cool. Again, as an athlete, preseason is a real thing. I think sometimes the fitness space kind of forgets that. I mean, obviously the top end people, but because it's a daily activity or hopefully, you know, multiple times a week for people, there's no like season component. But me as an athlete growing up, it's like, yeah, there's preseason. And preseason, like you're working intentionally. It's getting progressively maybe more difficult depending upon where you're at. And you're preparing for something. So we wanted to have a way for people to prepare for the season, which launched April 1. So that's where we were kind of like, all right, let's program workouts. And there were some of them were rucking only, some of them there was like lunges and strength stuff. So it was kind of like a nice, and anybody can do it and they had a good time. Yeah, so this is like just some details, some overview. We're not telling people what the events are until the first of each month. So April through August is our season. Every month there is a ruck race. It's one. It's not every week. It's just one. You can do it it's kind of like the CrossFit Open, but for rucking, essentially. And this is a graphic to give people, because we were getting a lot of questions. What's it going to be? And it's like, all right, I get it. People are inherently curious, and that's fine. This is giving people an idea of what they can expect from weighting. So we use percentages of body weight to, that's actually wrong. It's all right. Anyway, we use percentages of body weight to max load to a set weight, time duration 15 minutes to 3 hours. So we're giving people like a general idea of what they can expect over the course of the season. When it comes to programming the individual events, I think honestly, some of it is just the maybe creative outlet that I have liked to do, and keeping things interesting and looking at various metrics of rucking as well. A lot of this, I think, comes from just having, I mean, geez, almost 20 years of like CrossFit programming experience at this point, and just being in the industry and this type of thing for so long. So yeah, so this event is Chronos, 60 minutes at 20% body weight. You basically just get it going, get your weight set, and take off. Some people can scoot it or run it. We have some crazy fit people who are, there's somebody who is going for the Guinness World Record who did just under 13K. And I'm actually going to try to talk with him on Friday on our show. And it's just like, holy crap. It's, yeah, I mean, there's so much we can talk about it, but like, I love this first event because the goal, the intention with it is not to say, hey, beat somebody else. This is a you versus you event. 60 minutes, 20% body weight. That's a really kind of sweet spot of challenge where for some people that has been more than they ever would have rucked. And they're doing it. For some people, that's every day. 60 minutes, you can do that. It's very doable. If you're a top end, if you're one of these top end athletes, like 60 minutes, you could. Word on the street is there's somebody out there who's going to crack 13 kilometers. Like guaranteed crack it, which is wild. Like this dude who can move with a ruck, I've seen some things. It's like, hello, this is crazy. And for other people, it's like, hey, I did this weight I never would have done. Because one of the things with rucking that I kind of observed was most people, so rucking as an activity, rucking as an exercise is beautiful. It's wonderful. It's like, do that. If you're not fit, if you're trying to get back into it, look, put a bag on, put a bag of rice in there and go for a walk around the block. Like you're going to be doing so much for yourself. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. But that's not a sport either. Like you wouldn't really consider that a sport. So most people, when they ruck, they buy a bag, they maybe have a plate. So they use more or less the same weight and they go more or less for the same pace, usually for the same distance. It's very kind of known and it fits in 45 to 75 minutes, 15 to 35, 40 pounds, generally walking. Maybe they're talking, maybe they're doing a meeting on it. It's like, that's fine. That's wonderful. But there's a lot we're leaving out with that. So we are interested in providing people multiple opportunities to consider doing something they would not do, keeping it safe, keeping it accessible, and having them view themselves in a different light. Like, holy crap, like I tried. I tried. Like what more beautiful thing than to say as a human being, I fucking tried. Like I gave it my all. And wherever I finished, secondary to the fact that I cared enough to use my energy intentionally. We do that, we're winning.
For me as well, it's the accessibility, it's the affordability. It's very, very straightforward. There's not many out there that can be more simple and effective. If you think it's easy, if you think it's that simple, then try it. See how you get on. I know that certainly during the pandemic, there was a lot more people rucking. I certainly did. I took the kids out. I'd strapped my boy was just turned 1 when lockdown happened. So for 6 months, we went out on a morning walk. I strapped him to my back, and I'd have my daughter walking alongside me. We're going out for an hour walk every morning. And so I know damn well what a best part of like 10, 11 kilos on my back, so 23, 24, 25 pounds feels like on the back. That's not an easy task. So it's something very primal, something in our DNA to wander and to kind of tread new ground and for to go out and just be out there, and using anyone within the CrossFit world or street parking that you're obviously part of as well. We know that we need to use our fitness outside of the gym. The whole purpose of it is to get better and fitter for endeavors outside of the gym. We're not doing it to get fitter inside the gym. And that's where a little bit of the messaging has been lost along the way with CrossFit. Um, so this gives us a very, very good opportunity to be able to do that in a really controlled environment, where we're being told in a very accessible kind of way. Here's, you know, £25 ruck. You got to weigh it with your easy handheld weighing machine that costs about, I think you said it costs about $10 on Amazon. Grab one of those. All you have to do is video yourself doing that at the beginning, and you're way to go. Very accessible, very affordable. On already very, very strong online community, a global community, you know, beginning to build as well, which is fantastic to hear. And also, it's something that you get a lot of people, you know, slightly older, like myself. I'm 40. I'm not old yet, you know. I wouldn't consider myself old. But you know, the people my age and older that don't necessarily want to pound their knees with long distance running, want to give themselves a challenge outside of the box and going, you know, going wandering for an hour or two at a time. This is an incredible opportunity to do that, to be competitive with it, and you know, to test your fitness in different ways. So just like High Rocks has boomed, just like weightlifting and powerlifting competitions have boomed over the last sort of decade or so, there's absolutely no reason why this shouldn't be part of a larger kind of repertoire of testing that we can use. So no, it was really interesting when I kind of came across the page, Bill, and I'm really happy that you've managed to sort of to pursue the idea. Like I said earlier, Carrie Ann obviously said about you have these ideas and she fulfills them. But obviously this is something that's bigger than just an idea. I think, you know, just like street parking has been, just like High Rocks is as an event. I really do believe the Ruck Race League could be quite a big community and quite a simple way of doing things, for people to, in order to test their fitness. How do people join? How do people join the Ruck Race League?
They go to ruckraceleague.com. There's a register button. You click register. It's $100. Simple as that. You don't need any special bag. You don't need any fancy quick kit. Like, you don't have to buy anything. You probably have enough outside. And you know, I will say, to your point about the gym and stuff, is that one of the we're longtime, you know, gym owners. We're small business owners. That's just what we do. We view this as a way that also is a value. It's a very nice symbiotic relationship between your local gyms, the local people, and this outside of the gym thing. So people that are, let's just take a CrossFit gym, that are yeah, kind of having something to train for, something to gather outside, something to friendly push, something that they're it is scalable, it's super accessible. And also, if you look at sort of trying to structure your programming or your training towards improving at this as a sport, you're going to get stronger. You're going to improve your cardiovascular base, your your VO2 max, and your just like kind of zone 2, like all of that. We kind of want all of it. We want the strength spectrum to the long and slow spectrum too. And now it's like, well, where do I go to help me do that? It's like, go to your local gym. Go to your like human being that you know. Now, if you work out at home or your garage, like that's fine. And then be like, hey, how can I bring others in here and share it? So, you know, we really are coming at this from the perspective of the symbiotic relationship between individuals, others, and either local gyms or garage affiliates or clubs. You know, it doesn't have to necessarily be like a formal thing. Yeah, so yeah, and we don't own that. Like, we're not going to open Ruck Race League gyms, or oh, you have to do our programming. Like, no, we're staying in our lane, and there's plenty to eat, and we're not trying to go around and, you know, kind of piss on every fire hydrant and say, we own this, we own that. Like, no, here's that we're providing a home and a place to gather, an experience, to have it be positive, challenging, really inspiring, impressive, like all of the things. Disappointing. I wanted to hit 10K. I went a couple weeks ago and I was like 9 something or other. I'm like, all right, I got like, here we go. Like, this is fun. This is good. And I'm not a less than human being because I didn't hit my goal, but now I've got something to challenge myself with and push for. And frankly, like, yeah, I think it's cool to have that. And the community is really shaping up to be very, very positive, very helpful, um, very supportive. It's been, yeah, it's been a really uplifting thing to see.
Mm.
Yeah, I've
You've
got to
got a lot of
update
people
that.
already going.
Yeah, so that's out of date now. I think we have
Mm.
almost all but one state. I don't know who we have hanging out. We've got South America, there's Uruguay, there's Brazil.
Mm.
There's a couple places throughout, yeah, obviously the UK,
It would.
Netherlands,
It
Germany, yeah.
appears to be um, Britain. I think you've got, was it Holland or Belgium at the top there?
Yeah,
You've got, I think that's Norway, Sweden.
Sweden.
You've got Australia. So it looks like you've got the early adapters of CrossFit. All the
Yeah.
countries that kind of, up and around with CrossFit initially, you've got them already jumping at the bit. So I think, I know you're onto a good thing here. Many people that I currently, am around at the CrossFit gyms. Jon, my good friend, Scottish Jon, mentioned a dude that works at the gym, rucks 20K a day with 30 kilos on his back. We know a guy called Fergie. Big up the Fergalicious. I know he rucks a lot. He tells us all about his rucks. He's a powerhouse. Used to be a powerlifter for USA back in the day. I think a lot of people somehow stumble upon rucking and figure out, you know what, this is a great opportunity for me to really test myself, but under a different kind of discomfort and strain. It's a very unique offering that we don't really get in the gym. Heidi's asked a good question. Best type of ruck. Now I'm assuming she means the actual ruck itself, the bag, rather than the actual pursuit.
Yeah, my honest answer is, what do you have? The best ruck for you right now is the one you have. If it's got strap, if it's a backpack. Now, how heavy are you looking to load it? There's so many good brands out there. Go Ruck is obviously the most well-known one. But there's plenty of other brands, Kelty, Camelback. I mean, honestly, like any backpack you have, I wouldn't overcomplicate it. And in my experience too, like I remember, I had some ridiculously expensive rucks in the military and this and that. No ruck, no bag, no piece of equipment is going to take away the discomfort, especially when you're a beginner or if you're newer to it. And and I kind of like that. Like there's an element of that I like because it's like, hey, like weight, like literally bearing weight does not discriminate based upon how fancy of a kit you have. Now, it's actually cool. I can share this. Kafaru, the hunting company out here, they're actually sponsoring next month's Ruck Race.
Oh, wow.
And they make some incredible gear for like the hunting and like pack out stuff. And so for their application, where you're packing up hundreds of pounds of meat and having to hike across the backcountry, like okay, that piece of kit, that piece of equipment is going to be a little bit more specific. For a military application, like I did a really heavy ruck with my kind of military bag, and I realized like the way I packed it also kind of mattered too. So all the weight was at the bottom. So in that case, there's how do you pack the ruck? So Heidi, whichever ruck you have, whichever backpack you have, I would go with. And there's so many good options too in terms of budget and price point and style. Some rucks people love. I look at them like I'm not wearing that thing. But some people love them. You know what I mean? Like and yeah.
I think I saw a video somewhere. There was like a red, just Jansport, just some old knackered out Jansport bag, and I'm desperately trying to find it. There was a
Yeah,
video
so
of
she said, I don't
exactly.
have a bag. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Heidi, if you message me, I'll also on Instagram. I'll also ask you a couple questions too of or help you out trying to find.
Because Heidi's sister is actually she may have won it. I think she's definitely first or second. Heidi, remind me, was it Ironman? She's currently either second or first in the world ranking in Ironman.
Wow.
So her family have got a very, very strong pedigree of endurance. So I'd imagine Heidi second in Ironman series last year. Yeah. So an insane pedigree there. So, and I know Heidi. I'm sure I've heard Heidi say she loves a ruck now and again. So yeah, it should be a good person to get on board. Anyway, Bill, I'm aware that I've kind of taken up a lot more of your time than I asked for.
No,
So I'm
all right.
really,
That's good.
so I'm really,
You're good. I've got another few minutes. We're good.
So I'm woman. I've been corrected by Sean there because Sean's very politically correct. So he wanted me to make sure that I knew. So Bill, thank you for your time. I'm really, really pleased that I managed to get you on. Everyone can please go and check out the Ruck Race League Instagram page. It's got a hell of a lot of information on there. There's so many posts. One thing I was going to ask you, Bill, was about social media. Your personal page, it is just littered with really decent information. A lot of information going back years and years and years now. You can see kind of your progress through from the military all the way through to today. Really inspirational stuff on there. Never really talking about yourself. It's always about other people around you or people that you've been inspired by or kind of stories that you've kind of heard. So I'd encourage people to go and check that out as well. There's a lot there. Social media is one thing that I've kind of not been that great with. And I can't even say it's because of my age, because we're the same age nearly. So it's nothing to do with that. I think it's just laziness. One thing you did say, though, was that you like to journal. You see a lot of journaling. You encourage people to do it. That's one thing that I've never had the, whatever you want to call it, to do, impetus to do. So there's probably a lot in that. And I think social media plays a big part in that for a lot of people, especially for kind of relaying and sharing information. So, and I think being part of that community, for me, being part of the community has always served that role. Me standing in front of people, coaching them, gives me the opportunity to kind of, vent sometimes, sometimes badly. It can go. You might know this, but when stand-up's talking about kind of, well, I won't use the phrase, but when it just goes to shit, they're stood on stage and it just bombs. They something doesn't kind of go down very well. Did you ever get that on the L1 staff, on the or coaching? Stood at the front, try and be funny, try and be acute with something, try and be direct, and you just get this wall of nothing. How do you move on from that?
Oh man, I actually gave a talk to a bunch of CEOs and I completely bombed it. I that was a hard one, and I mean, some of it was like I didn't know what I was doing, but I was also thinking like they were like, okay, 90 minutes. I'm like 90 minutes. It's like a movie. So there's some stuff, but I just kind of was like, I felt like terrible after that. I was like, what am I doing? What this, that, the other. But it was a learning lesson. And it was also, I was trying to say stuff and maybe be someone that I wasn't. So, when I was actually doing my internship for level 1 staff, I was so fired up, and Austin Malleolo was the flow master. And he's like, all right. It was my second internship. He's like, all right, you want to be a red shirt? Teach the squats, whole thing. It's on you. And I was like, and I had known Austin previously. And it was like, all right, like this, he was throwing me into the fire. And I was like, I felt completely unprepared. Usually you do like maybe one. No, it was like all of them. Well, I was so fired up and I'm like going through it. I finished in like 32 minutes. Just 60 minutes. It's 60 minutes. They're very intentional with the timeline. I look over at the end of it. We're like finishing our overhead squats and stuff. I look over and they're like, another group is like teaching the front rack of the front squat. I'm like, oh fuck. So I was like, that's it, you know, and I kind of recovered and said like, all right, well, you know, we built up to the most, you know, high skill thing. We went up, let's come back down and revisit mechanics and see how, and I kind of like just went with it and just, and after he was like, well, you totally fucked the timeline up. Don't ever do that again. He's like, but somehow, I don't know how, I've never seen it before. Somehow it kind of worked. So, but like, don't ever do that again. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry. And but you know, I think that's like the failures and the bombing and putting yourself out there. There's courage in that. And you know what? I'd rather be somebody who bombs it, who fails, who realizes like, man, I've got some room to grow, than somebody who stays in the sidelines and the stands and never has the courage to like step onto the field or step out and you know, so it's a hard one to swallow for sure. But I'd so much rather be that person than someone who later on in life says, I could have done it, but I didn't, but you never ended up, you never took the risk.
It is a lot easier on the sidelines. What's the phrase over there? Is it Monday quarterback, or what's the phrase over there?
Yeah, Monday morning quarterback.
Monday morning quarterback. It's a lot easier in hindsight. But two, when you're outside looking in, be able to kind of criticize and look, it's a lot easier said than done. And that does go well with what you were talking about earlier, about having these ideas and you know, rolling with them and just not being afraid to fail, You know, that sounds like a kind of a theme throughout from, you know, when you quit PwC to join the military. You're obviously someone that has ideas and isn't afraid to kind of run with them. And I think that kind of, I don't want to call it entrepreneurship because I don't think it's the same thing, but that spirit to kind of be confident in what you do and then learn from when it doesn't quite go right, that can only lead to success. And you're one of the, you're one of the many people that I've spoke to recently that share that. You're willing to put yourself out there with this new idea, this new thing, a new concept. You're breaking ground with it. But you've noticed a gap, you've found a niche part, you know, that was missing, that kind of brings community back together, and you're willing to kind of put yourself out there and do that. So it's very admirable. It's a very admirable trait and quality that people kind of, you know, it's very obvious when someone has that, when they don't mind putting themselves out there. So, yeah, you should be pretty proud of yourself for that. So I really hope that Ruck Race League does continue to kind of, you know, get a lot more people in there. If we can do our part with that, that'd be great. If people can go over there and follow the Instagram page to start. There's the YouTube page as well that's just started last week. The hour-long video of you and Carrie Ann is awesome. There's a lot of nuggets in there to take away, a lot of information about Ruck Race that I'm sure I haven't been able to remember to bring up today. So I'd encourage people to go and do that. And then hopefully we can get a few people kind of registered and joining the league. So Bill, thank you so much for joining me today, and hopefully we can have you back on later in the year. Maybe you and Carrie Ann can come on and have a chat about the success of the Ruck Race League this year and plans to do next.
Jake, thanks so much for having me on, and just means a lot, honestly. And your words are not just words; like they truly reach me. So, thank you, and to everybody who tuned in. And just I didn't really see all the comments until now, but like. Appreciate you being here. So thank you so much. Really, really thank you.
Lovely. Awesome, Bill. If you hang off one sec, I'll just tie everything up and then I'll have a chat with you after. So thanks very much for joining me and Bill today, guys. If you could go and follow him, that would be awesome. There's a lot of valuable content there. And a few of you, so Sean, Heidi, Jon, even Weed, Mason, I'm going to get you to join me on a ruck virtually. We can compare and contrast times. Who have I got next? I have got Club La Santa on Sunday. If you don't know who they are, obviously you're not European. Everyone in Europe knows Club La Santa. So Sunday morning, midday GMT. I look forward to seeing you all then. And there we go.